Hello and welcome to the Global Youth Climate Summit in partnership with the Right Here, Right Now Global Climate Alliance that is brought to you by the University of Oxford and hosted by the Syed Business School in partnership with the United Nations Human Rights. And we're delighted that you could join us. If you've already been with us, well, thank you. And if you're just joining us, we have a very exciting session where we'll be discussing youth-led innovations in South Asia. And as you all know, South Asia is bearing the brunt of the climate crisis, whether it is water scarcity, extreme weather events, floods, and such like. And that makes it even more incumbent on the region to respond to the climate crisis. But South Asia is also a very young demographic. If you see the countries that make up South Asia, you'll find the young being in the overwhelming majority. And that really leads for innovations to come from the youth, the young people. And in this session, we'll be actually spotlighting some of those path-breaking innovations that have come to the fore and more in the pipeline. So we do hope that you enjoy the session. It's contextually relevant to you and what learnings you could probably take back to your own regions, countries, and areas of work. So and I'm delighted that I have some amazing innovators with us from South Asia. And this session also shows the importance of regional cooperation. How do we work across borders? How do we make climate innovations and solutions transnational? And what we are attempting today is to showcase solutions from four countries, three rather, three countries from where these people come from, but they're actually based in a fourth country. And that's what makes this unique. So it's with great pleasure that I welcome Syeda, Tirushi, Aniba, and Parvi, who are going to be joining us and talking to us about what they did, why they did the solutions and innovations that they had in mind, and what impact it's been able to create. Hi, Syeda. Hi, Tirushi. I hope you can hear us. Tirushi, if you can hear me, could you just unmute your mic and say hello? Saida, if you're there, if you could just unmute your mic and say hello. So Tirushi says, I cannot hear you, Saida, and neither can I hear you, Tirushi. So if you could just unmute and just say hi. Okay, so we'll just troubleshoot and make sure that you're we have the tech sorted out. We'll take a short break and we'll be back in under a minute to make sure that our tech is up to speed and get to hear from our participants. So we will be right back after this short break. Welcome back to the Global Youth Summit, Climate Summit that we are hosting here at the University of Oxford's Syed Business School. Thank you if you've joined us this morning for this session. And thank you also for all of those who have been with us when we kicked off this summit at midnight British Standard Time. And this summit is really a showcase of innovators who are leading the challenge and response to the climate crisis. And as I said earlier in my remarks, South Asia is actually feeling the major blunt of the climate crisis, whether it is extreme weather events, food security, water safety, security, and a whole plethora of climate-related impacts that are being felt by our population. And as I said, South Asia also is a young demographic, and the youth are technology savvy, and they're looking at technologies to actually chart the way forward as nations respond to the climate crisis. But this is not just about nations, because we know the climate crisis is a trans-border issue. And here we have a showcase of wonderful cooperation that's actually taking place between nationals of three countries who reside in a fourth country and are working together for finding solutions. So I'm delighted to welcome Parvi, Syeda, and Tirushi. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, same
Wonderful.
here.
And it's so inspiring to have you chat with us today. And, let me kick things off. But before I do that, why don't the three of you introduce yourself, which school you're from, where you're currently based out of, and in just one sentence, talk about your project. And it cannot be more than a sentence, and then we'll kick things off. Parvi, why don't you give it a shot?
Okay, well, hi, my name is Parvi Goel. I actually live in UAE, but I'm from India. I go to Cambridge High School, the school we all go through. And in one line, if I had to summarize our project, it's mainly about giving farmers the right to use sustainable resources efficiently. And that's what's missing in our market size today in market.
Excellent. Saida.
Hi, my name is Syeda Mehak. I am from Pakistan. I'm currently living in UAE. I'm from the Cambridge High School, all of us are. In one sentence, our project is a way to, as Parvi said, help farmers gain the resources while aiding in the current freshwater crisis.
Excellent. Tirushi.
Okay, so my name is Tirushi. I'm from Sri Lanka, and as the two of them said, I'm also from Cambridge High School. One way to say what our project is, it takes sewage water and converts it into a sustainable resource that we can use forward for agriculture, in a nutshell. That helps farmers.
Great. I think you all did excellent in the summation of it. And now I want you to expand on what you've done. And Saida, why don't I start with you? So your team has actually, in those one-line answers one could gather, has really given a plethora of solutions. And it is sort of directed towards the farming community and the farmer. But the solutions are quite interesting. You've done wastewater recovery, you're doing nutrient recovery and dew recovery. What was the most challenging part of identifying what type of solutions we need to look at? And then why did you look at these few solutions, distilling from the list that you had?
Thank you for your question. First of all, about the challenging part, I just want to say that first of all, we began with the passion to help the underprivileged people in a way, while also we were reading about the current freshwater scarcity crisis, and we wanted to help in some way, whatever our project was doing. It had to be related to it. So we got the idea after a lot of researching, but I think the main questions we came up with and the challenges we came up with, due to our passion for the project, we were able to overcome it quite quickly. But like those questions, finding the answers to that, we had to do hours and days of research. And those research, finding the research papers and understanding the technical terminologies about heavy machinery and chemical processes that we've never heard before, that was quite challenging. But I feel like with all three of our brains combined, it became quite fun and interesting.
That's great. Tirushi, let me just pick up from what Saida said. There is a lot of technology that went into the solutioning that you all came up with. In fact, when I was looking at my notes, some of those technologies that you used was really rocket science for me. I mean, you were talking about zeolite filtration, we're talking about ammonia capture. I mean, A, how did you know that these technologies would work? B, how did you acquaint yourself with them being solutions that you could look at? I'm very interested in knowing how you look at technology and think that this will be the best fit.
So, like how Mehak said, we went through a lot of research papers. Like, many people have done water purification.
Yeah.
So, there were stuff like chlorination, desalination, but we wanted to take a different approach to it and utilize sewage water in a more practical way, like how we give it to agriculture or farmers. So, the main thing in sewage water, it has so much heavy metals and a lot of ammonium concentration. So for this, the best medium that we could have through all those research papers, days and nights, were to use zeolite. So zeolite, the main thing about it, it takes its heavy metal concentrations, and there's these porous filters in there which absorbs it, and it takes out all those heavy metals in, and it just makes it more filtered compared to other things, and it does not like release a harmful gas like chlorination or whatsoever.
And when you identified this solution as being something which is effective and something that, when you compare it with others, was probably more useful to be using given the challenges that you put forth. How do you think that this can then be implemented on the ground? How did that translation happen from reading about research on these processes and then actually implementing it on the ground?
Well, the eco harvest system is a process system. So there's like, because we're focusing on sewage, we want to first take the debris out, right? So after that, there's going to be like a sludge. Then from there, there's going to be like the watery part of it. So zeolite help take in this water in sewage there. Like I said, the heavy metals are still there. So it was a step-by-step process that we use zeolite in order to like take off the heavy metals and go on with the filtration process to end up with some clean water that we can use for agriculture. So that's like the step process that we wanted to use towards it.
That's great. Parvi, let me turn to you. So, you folks spoke about the reason why you're doing this for the farming community, for regenerative agriculture, for safe agriculture, and obviously it has impacts on food security and sort of economic independence and so on. But and we spoke about the technology and the research that went into this project planning. Let me segue into another important aspect of sustaining sustainable projects, because they are very good to do as pilots. They're probably good to do in small scale, but when you look at scaling up, financial viability of projects, whether they make economic sense, there's a cost benefit to everything. How did you approach this weighty subject?
So, personally, me, I think financial feasibility isn't just important, it's foundational if you want a climate solution to actually scale realistically. And especially in agriculture, you need to understand your target audience and end users is often a small or mid-scale farmer operating on like razor thin margins. And your cost determines if whether your solution is going to survive beyond a conference presentation. So at Eco Harvest, when we presented our solution in COP29, right, we decided that we wanted to develop a system that was actually going to be specifically for the farmers, targeting them and their needs. And we studied mainly our competitors, including many in this field, including Veolia, Netafim, Pure Aqua, that go in this community. And they're all doing amazing, but their systems can go largely from what we're like from $400 to $3,000 per ton unit. And we managed to achieve that by 200. But that didn't we did this by doing research of what other cost effective materials can we use. And to ensure our financial feasibility was actually effective, we actually ran a pilot project in Maharashtra from this company Bulk Cream, where we actually like saw like what needs to be done in order to be effective and ensure that is this when we actually like it's one thing for like a system to be cost effective, but when you're selling it, having your own profit margins and etc., thinking it as a business aspect, how much is it going to increase and how are we benefiting from economies of scale and trying to reduce our cost as much and we come with a very like social benefit and a financial benefit like motive when we came into eco harvest.
And that's fantastic because, we often talk about the triple bottom line, that while you're doing good for society and you have your heart at the right place, you also need to do and make solutions which are financially viable. And I'm very happy that you're looking at that also as an important aspect, because otherwise, scaling up will be a problem. And I'm sure Eco Harvest will not have trouble on that front. Saida, let me turn to you. So we spoke about the solution. We spoke about the impact that it can create, and how you looked at, the needs, and then sort of how to address it using technology. But let's talk about culture. I think you all come from different countries. You happen to reside in one country at the moment, and who knows, in the future you'd probably continue to work together. That's certainly the hope. But how has culture, where you come from, both ethnicity and nationality, play a part, both positive to work together, but also to help contextualize, because you come from parts of South Asia where probably you see the farmer crisis or the agri crisis closer up. So how has culture played its part?
Culture has played a major part, especially in our ideation process, because when we think of all of these ideas, we have like we can think back to our homegrown, we can think back because we've seen it, we've seen sewage water leaking on the roads, we've seen farms in real time. So I feel like, and especially in living in UAE, what happens is when a kid grows up a certain way to see adults who are paying a lot of attention to environmental crises and climate change and something like how to find a solution, what to do. When you have that background, when you know what it's actually like, because otherwise it's superficial, you're just seeing pictures online. But since we've seen how it's actually like, we have a first-hand experience, we have more empathy, but at the same time, we have the skills and the knowledge and sort of the awareness to actually look for a solution. I'd say, for example, back in my home country, kids aren't that motivated or they're not very entertained to actually go and look for a solution. But in UAE, every other day there's another conference, there's another competition, something about climate change, find innovative solutions, you get prizes. So I feel like a way to motivate the youth and for youth empowerment and ambition, that is a great way. So I'd say culture plays a huge role.
That's wonderful. Thanks for that context about where you come from, but also the environment that you're currently provided and how that can sort of spur ideas. Tirushi, let me turn to you. You're dealing with a stakeholder, and very specifically, I'm talking about the farming community, has very different and differing levels of education, socioeconomic standing. Um, how does it impact your communication style to them? How do you make sure that you win over that key stakeholder to use your technology?
So basically, the best thing we can have done is partner with NGOs. So these organizations are already have a close understanding with the local farmers, and they can bridge the gap between us and the farmers, and whatever like instructions there are with the eco harvest system or whatever it is, these NGOs can help farmers understand. And on top of that, we can also give one-to-one training of what each product or what each process does or whatever it has in the system itself. And another way we can also go upon this is even us, sometimes if we have a list of instructions, we'll go crazy of what to do, right? Having a picture one by one, it will help us like, okay, maybe this diagram if helps us do this thing and this diagram does this. They have a full overview of what the system is rather than reading. Maybe if they don't know how to read, if they, because sometimes farmers back home, like where I come from in Sri Lanka, many people don't have that educational background.
Yes.
So if, for instance, like they've seen pictures here and there, if we give them a picture of how the system look, what the system does, like what this does, they'll have a better understanding rather than, like I said, a full book of instructions.
Great insights there. I think that's very useful. And then it also makes it easier across geographies for it to be adopted, because you're not language dependent in that sense. I'm glad that you looked at it from that lens in terms of how the uptake will be from the farming community. Parvi, I think Tirushi touched upon this. I want you to expand on stakeholder engagement, identifying who these stakeholders are. And in your conversations, all three of you pointed towards, the farming community, but also NGOs, and also collaborative working both within where you all are, but with other solution providers. So, how is working with the stakeholders important, and how did you go around finding who is the relevant stakeholder for you?
I think mainly the first step in any project should be about understanding who your target audience is, right? Once you understand your customers, even as people around you, your employees, you will all be able to work to a specific target when you know what you're working towards. As my colleagues mentioned, you need to have a specific target that you're working towards. So it's important that first of all, our customers, aka the farmers, were at our top priority. But it's also important to understand distribution cannot just happen through simple air, and that's why we needed government's help, including their grants, including NGO businesses like we mentioned, Bulk Green, giving the youth the opportunity to do so. So including not just our consumers like the farmers, but even the governments play a huge role with our stakeholder groups and play a vital role in eco harvest to be able to expand like that in such a way. And moreover, stakeholders not just including us, but also the people who can be benefited, like just the general public in itself. We ensure that our system does not have any pollution when we're doing it. It's not about also just thinking about the farmers, but also the general environment, because we have both our internal stakeholders and our external, which we want to take in consideration and to avoid any stakeholder conflict, we keep ensuring that we have a solution that caters to all audience. But obviously, first of all, when we're thinking of an idea, we're always, our first target is about how are the farmers going to benefit from this.
Yeah, and I think that's very important what you raise about externalities. You should not find a solution that creates a problem as it solves one. But also, talk to me about any pushback. Did you ever, as you were putting this solution out there, it all sounds as if everything went smooth, and you just sat together and ideated, and Eco Harvest was born. But I'm sure there would have been pushback, some challenges. Throw some light on those.
Yeah, of course. So, like, it started at school. You're starting very small, okay? You see zeolite on on your chemistry screen, and suddenly ideas are popping up. The next second, you're on sixth form in a bench discussing about how we had like a huge rain the other day, and how our sewage systems in UAE are actually not capable of handling it. So the discussion came about sewage systems, and then we linked zeolite with it, and we're like, why are we not using this? All this water goes into waste. How are we not? So first of all, to be able to come in ideation, to be able to connect, and everyone's going like, how's that going to work? So first comes the idea, which has its own problems. So step one, when idea is done, then you actually have to understand, okay, we had the wildest idea, make waste into resource. But in order for that to happen, you need to do the research. One blurts out the most random idea, but the research that goes behind this, I can remember like we had endless nights where we went through research papers, looking of University of Florida that had done a research about the zeolite usage. One, because we actually, the thing is, in order for us to be cost effective, we don't use one technology, but we use multiple stages, as Tirushi's mentioned, right? We go through multiple processes to be able to make it into one concise one. So the main thing is, it was not about researching about one system, but how all the systems work together. Till now, these systems, even if they work separately in the businesses I've mentioned. Like mainly, Pure Aqua has something similar, but they have it very separately. No one has ever done to be able to collect. So first of all, we didn't know if this was actually practical. And we had like a conference in UE, which was ad NOC, at ECOP, again for youth, which we're very grateful for UE for. And in that, we met again the director of Bulk Green, Devin Shah, and there we got the opportunity to actually play into role. Now, when you actually implement something, you understand what your difficulties are. You understand that what you thought theoretically wasn't actually like happening. This is not absorbing as much as what we wanted to, like our solution. And then we were like, okay, but this much water flow was supposed to happen, but that's not what's happening. So what we understood is that eco harvest needs to be made for specific countries, and getting the logistics. And then we actually had many like experts, like one of the people we know is a sustainable agriculture economist research. So once they reviewed our thing, they had their own concerns, and then we had to look through that. And then we had a very ongoing person who works in sewage systems, and they told us about their inputs, like, you're going to do this, but you need to understand that there's like, if we're doing something in UAE, for example, there's approximately 100 million like square meters of water going per day. How are you going to deal with that? You're probably thinking about a small scale like 10,000. Those questions start to come up, and then you have to think about answers for that, which we're very grateful for. We're constantly wanting to have those questions. But when you come with a setback, there's one time where we actually didn't have an answer. So then it's important that you can also seek guidance. We, after all, we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the expertise. So to be able to gather that, but as a youth, it's important that we are the translators between innovation and impact. We actually also have like our foundation called Plethora, where we talk about solutions like this, sustainable solutions, and we want to ensure that as youth, if we don't even have the expertise, we should be the distribution channel to ensure we can educate others. We can hold webinars where farmers who are uneducated can learn about this, learn about sustainable innovations existing in the market, which they're not aware about right now. So that's what our main challenges were, I think, when we faced them.
That's wonderful. So you spoke about how you iterate to fit, how you take setbacks as challenges that you can learn from, and then seek guidance. And when you're here, the three of you in the summer school during the summer, I think that that'll be some great guidance that you can seek in terms of how do you handle those setbacks in the future and learn to propel yourself, because there probably isn't a better environment than the side business school to let you know about real world challenges and some real world solutions as well. And we'll be delighted to host you later this year. Syeda, in the interest of time, let me just run a few questions very quickly. How has the reaction been for friends and family? I mean, you've already the idea was good as a school project, and today you are global entities. You're role models for the world. What has the reaction of friends and family been like?
Friends have been really supportive and proud. Family was just like, you went abroad and you won a competition. So it was great. It was a great experience. Everyone was really happy, and it feels good to know that there are a lot of people standing behind you who believe in you. And they all said that we knew you were gonna win. So it feels good. And then you come back home and you get a lot of gifts. So everything went well in that aspect.
Great. Tirushi, so what next? What do you all have in mind for Eco Harvest or for other projects?
Well, for sure, this is not just an idea. We said that in the Oxford, where we also had to present it. It was not just an idea, we want to implement it. And we are willing to contact NGOs. There's some people in India that we have contacts of that are willing to also, like, when we went for that conference, like how Parvi mentioned, in Adipec, like in UAE, these people, they're really willing to get this idea outside, have this idea implemented. It can't just be in the idea phase. Everyone can have an idea, everyone can have a solution, but how can it become a practicality is what we want to do. And that's the practicality we would like to, like, go throughout the years and check when can we establish this. And it is one of our ideas to have it in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, India, and throughout developing countries as well, because water is a major factor that is used. And with the rising population, we need agriculture, like, to compensate. So we want to spread this around. So basically going through businesses or whatever it is. And that's our future plan for Plethora. Expand, basically.
That's wonderful to hear, and good to know that you're also thinking about the global south, because water is a global commons issue. It is not just about one country facing this issue. It's about regions, multiple regions, and in fact most of the globe having to battle with this. So thank you for that insight, and thank you also for this great vision that you three have set out for yourself, both with what you want to do with this project, but how it can also do larger good for geographies that you don't currently work in, but I'm confident that you will be there in the years ahead. So with that, I would like to draw this wonderful conversation to a close, although we could have actually gone on and on, because it's so inspiring to hear and learn from the three of you, and to see that kind of impact that you've been able to create. And also, like Parvi said, thanks for being the translators who can make innovations impactful. I think, that's the role of the youth. If we had to sum up what we are, when I say we, what the world is expecting from the young voices like what we've heard today, to make that real meaningful change. And to the audience, thank you for your patient listening. The Global Youth Climate Summit, hosted at the University of Oxford Side Business School, is meant to actually give voice to voices that are actually making change happen on the ground. And we saw Parvi, Syeda, and Tirushi give a fine example of how you can work in the sector of agriculture, look at wastewater, and actually help in water circularity that can improve food security as an end result. Thank you once again, and congratulations on winning the award last year. And I'm sure you're all looking forward to coming to Oxford. And we're delighted that we can host you.
Thank you so much. We're excited as well.
Yeah, we're grateful for you to give us the opportunity to give our voices a platform for us to speak. So it's just a delight.
More power to the three of you.
Thank
More
you.
power to the three of you, and we look forward to having you here in Oxford, where the weather will be sunnier, but the learning will not stop. Thank you. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a
Bye.
great day.
And thank you to the audience for your patient listening. And do
Yeah.
continue to listen in and watch the summit, which will go on till midnight British Standard Time. Thank you. Goodbye.